Welcome back to Recap Universe. Today, we'll be recapping a 2017 romantic movie titled Little Hours. Kindly sit back and enjoy. The movie begins in the year 1347 in Garfagnana, Italy. A convent of nuns is led by Father Tommaso. The three nuns at the center of the story are Alessandra, who wants a better life for herself but is held at the convent due to her father's support to the church, Ginevra, a gossip who is later revealed to be a Jewish lesbian, and Fernanda, a violent sadist. In the first scene, Fernanda walks into the convent with a donkey when Ginevra comes to meet her. Ginevra asks why she is at the lodge that early, and Fernanda says it's because the donkey escaped from the lot and she had to find it. Ginevra asks if the donkey escaped through the door or through the walls. Fernanda feels uncomfortable with the numerous questions and cautions Ginevra on why she is asking too many questions. The gardener Lurko passes beside them and greets them. Together they scream at him and tell him never to greet them or speak with them again. They use several insulting words at him. Later on, they go to the temple for Holy Communion service hosted by Father Tommaso, and after the service, Mother Maria asks Fernanda why she was at the lodge that morning. Fernanda tells her it's because of the donkey and promises Mother Maria to keep a closer eye on the donkey. Later on we see Sister Alessandra sitting alone and making embroidery for the church. Later that day, Ginevra and Fernanda speak about Alessandra. They say that Alessandra's situation is pitiful, and she thinks that because her family gives huge donations to the church and she always gets anything she wants from the church. That day, Alessandra looked depressed and was hoping for someone to save her from the convent by marrying her. The next day, Alessandra's father comes visiting. Alessandra asks him how the family and her siblings were. She also asked about a suitor who wants to marry her. Her father reveals that the suitor has been coming around to find her, but they haven't been able to gather her dowry. He further claims that he is spending huge money on the church and also sending money to her sisters and their children, so he doesn't have enough to save for her dowry. He concludes that maybe she is destined to continue making embroideries at the convent and not to get married. Hearing this, Alessandra started crying, forcing her father to leave the visiting room. Later that day, Alessandra goes on a walk with the other sisters who ask her about her father's visit and asks if they have gotten a suitor for her. They walk beside Lurko, who they claimed was staring at them. The nuns go to assault Lurko, who in turn goes to meet Father Tommaso, who was about to go to the market to sell embroideries. Lurko reports the incident to him and demands to leave because the sisters constantly assaults him. Father Tommaso manages to convinces him to stay for a while, however Lurko refuses and goes away. Meanwhile in Linigiana, a young servant named Macedo is almost caught having sex with his master's wife at night. Her husband walks into her room. Macedo quickly jumps out and enters his room before his master enters. His master notices someone just left the room, so he chases him to the male servant's dormitory. The master figures he is the one and cuts off a piece of his hair to identify him at dawn. After his master leaves, he goes to cut the hair of the other sleeping servants. The following day, when the master checked on them, he sees everyone with identical haircut and couldn't identify who he was searching for. However, during the day his master's wife tries to make out with him again in broad daylight. This time, his master sees him and orders that he should be killed. While on the run, he discovers Father Tommaso, who has gone to sell some embroidery but has instead gotten drunk and lost his possessions in the river. Macedo helps him return home, and the two arrange to have Macedo work as a gardener while pretending to be a deaf mute in hopes that this will dissuade the nuns from giving him. On Macedo's first day at work, Fernanda sees him and immediately goes to attack him thinking he is an intruder, but when Mother Maria comes, she tells her that he's their new gardener. Mother Maria further tells Alessandra that their embroideries were stolen, so they have to make new ones. Later on, Alessandra's wood gets broken. She takes it to Macedo for repair, and while she waits for it, she remembers that he's a deaf mute and complains about her life to him. At night after the day's work, Father Tommaso takes drinks to Macedo and leaves the communion wine room open. Martha, Fernanda's friend, takes some wine from the room and takes it to Fernanda, who in turn drinks and marries with the sisters all night long. Later on, Fernanda takes Ginevra to another room and makes out with her, signifying that she is a lesbian. The following day, Alessandra also goes to meet Macedo in the garden. After trying to communicate with him using sign language, she tries to make out with him in broad daylight, but they stop suddenly after little kisses. Elsewhere, Ginevra tries to talk with Fernanda about their last night's affair, but Fernanda refuses to talk about it and tells her to shut up and stop talking. This angers Ginevra as she keeps mute. At evening, Ginevra watches from a distance as Fernanda gives Martha her blood, and they both enters into Macedo's workshop. Immediately they both start to romance and pull down his clothes to have a taste of his big rod before making out with him forcefully in turns. Coming outside, they meet Ginevra, who asks questions about what they were doing with Macedo, but they kept quiet and goes away. The next day, Alessandra brings Macedo to her room and was in the process of making out with him. Unfortunately, an older nun enters the room unknown to them. Seeing the old nun, Macedo spoke in fear, forgetting he was a deaf mute as he hid from the woman and later leaves. Bishop Bartolomeo comes visiting the convent and walks around the compound greeting everyone. Later Alessandra goes to meet Macedo in his workshop. She accuses him of lying about being a deaf mute and threatens to report him if he doesn't say the truth. As Macedo begins talking to her, Ginevra, who is confused about her sexuality, comes in, and Alessandra quickly hides from her. Ginevra goes to touch and kiss Macedo, but she still feels she prefers to sleep with Fernanda. She hears a voice coming towards the workshop and immediately hides in the same place as Alessandra. They see Fernanda enter the workshop and she kidnaps Macedo forcefully with a knife to his throat and takes him to the woods. Alessandra and Ginevra quietly followed her unknown to her. They see Fernanda performing rituals with witches in the forest while they watch. Ginevra, under the hallucinogenic effects of belladonna, runs out naked and starts dancing around the fire with the other witches. Fernanda tries to sleep with Macedo for her fertility rituals, but Alessandra comes and stops her amid the commotion. Macedo also reveals to all of them that he isn't a deaf mute. They all return to the convent and they meet the Bishop Bartolomeo. Each of them confess to what they have done, and the bishop judges them. The bishop finds out Father Tommaso and Mother Maria are having a relationship and strips Father Tommaso's off his priesthood, sending him away to become a monk. Macedo is returned to his master and is held in a jail cell with the impending threat of torture and death. The three nuns reconcile and become close again. They all decide to rescue Macedo. They go to his master's house, and when the guards are distracted, they take him away and replace him with some of their embroidery clothes. Meanwhile, Mother Maria has left the convent under the pretense of going to bring the donkey, and she is seen kissing Father Tommaso. While the sisters run with Macedo into the dark, the lovers see them and hide, but Fernanda sees the donkey and was suspicious. Maria and Tommaso come out of hiding as the movie ends. Thanks for watching.